So they're also settling in for the poke. Said in the pregame, Varus and Jace both on the rise here. Corki in the bot lane to facilitate that magic damage, because where Gambit Gaming is very heavy on AD on both their pokes, Copenhagen Wolves mix it up. So I think this was one of the better fixes for their composition. They do have the tank for disengage and peel, so it will be hard for them, or it will be easy for them rather to protect their carries. However, I feel they might go a tad low on damage later in the game.
So, ticking time bomb for the Copenhagen Wolves. We'll find out how good Soren's poke is and how coordinated the Wolves can be with two substitutions. Remember, Lenny and Je suis Cass in for Young Buck and Unlimited.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to play as one of these range supports, I feel, earlier on the LCS stage. You have that Black Shield that you honestly have to time pretty well. So we'll see how many jitters there is for Je suis Cass there on the first game in the European LCS. But talking game plan, Gambit, they want to rush in and take one of the carries down. That's what they want to do. Kill the Varus, ideally. Just pile on him. Flank him, just wombo combo, kill him immediately, and then make the rest of the fight, yeah, one carry against 3, and hopefully try to win it that way.
Yeah, bring more damage to the fight, and as long as you take out your opponent's damage, you win the fight. So
Easy
for Gambit, they're 3-7. They're coming up against the 2-8 Copenhagen Wolves. You can see the team compositions on your screen in a moment. There's a lot of pressure. Gambit, they want to make playoffs. You heard Sean's the coach talking about performing when it matters. You guys at home, jump on Twitter. Let us know, who do you think is going to win? Hashtag GMB win or hashtag CW win.
And the crowd is hyped. I like this. Good energy today.
Here we go. Flags are lit on the left-hand side of your screen. It's Gambit versus the Wolves. Gambit started their 3-game winning streak against the Wolves in week 3. We'll see if Gambit can do the same in week 6.
The person I'm going to watch is Shook. I really feel he needs to break open this early game with his Lee Sin. Phenomenal Lee Sin player if he's in his element, if he can keep going. Just land those early engages and get those ganks off and start snowballing.
Soren for the time being. Gonna spot this little invade. Ward secured by Forgiven. Keep his CS numbers looking healthy. Oh, we're in for a level 1 Crepo. And they're going in. Cabochon caught out and down. Shook with the first blood. Gambit totally misreading that situation.
Well, Copenhagen Wolves with good preparation. We've seen Gambit do this in previous games a lot. A lot of teams have been doing it, and it seems like a very nice counter. I prefer this over fanning out and then getting no information at all anyways. And a good start for the Wolves. Let's see who picked up that first blood on Shook. And yeah, the last time they played, that was a brutally slow game, if I remember correctly, where the Copenhagen Wolves kind of retreated into their base. No initiative. No like foresight, and eventually Gambit slowly won. I believe that was Gambit's first win of the split too.
It was week 3,
yeah.
Day 1. Cabochon was running the top lane Gragas, in fact. This time around, a different type of carry. And what I remember distinctly about that game was how the top laners had gone down bottom, and Diamond was ganking against Young Buck's Rumble, was putting pressure in the lane to get Cabochon ahead. We'll see if Shook can help Lenny out, but the matchup is very, very different today.
Now this is weird. It seems like Gambit is trying to match a predicted lane swap by Copenhagen Wolves here, because there is no reason to put your Fizz with Ignite in the jungle voluntarily. So a bit of a misread or a mental outplay from the Copenhagen Wolves. They start on their weak side with Shook. They do Gromp on Morgana Corki, which obviously makes it so that the lanes are going to push. We have early XP being soaked up by Lenny. Let's see how well Lenny fares in this 1v2 scenario. That might also be the strategy from Gambit. Say, okay, maybe on paper it's best for us to lane 2v2, 1v1. But let's just bully the new guy. Worked for Steve, or against Steve rather, in week 1.
Every time we do see substitutions on this stage, the more coordinated teams can punish the newer players.
Yeah, and the more vital players in these lane swap scenarios are the top laner and the support. Both new, but also both Belgian. So they should fare well.
What a local pride. We'll wait for the result before I start calling you out on how it works out. Lenny, maybe reading the situation and realizing there's some threat, he's instantly left that top lane.
Now in lane swaps, the resource you want to watch that unfortunately is not easily accessible on your screen is experience. Because you might get confused by the CS numbers, whereas they're close and all. But experience is really what you want to watch, and then lane control. The way these teams will manipulate these waves, how early they will get a tower, whether they bounce it back, and then once they do, who picks up that farm? That's where we're going to see the game plan for Gambit come out. I believe it'll be Cabochon, logically thinking.
So let's find out if Gambit agree with that logic, Crepo. We finally see Lenny show up in lane. He spent this entire time running down the map,
through the forest,
holding on to teleport. And we do see Diamond Going to force Soren to use a very early Ghost as well. So Gambit should get the first tower, but it will be mirrored by Copenhagen Wolves in the not too distant future.
Yeah, interesting summoner spell here. Soren, Ghost, Flash on the Varus. Oh, is that gonna bounce? Yeah. We'll see that later. So both teams should bounce these waves, as I was interrupted there. And then Cleanse, of course, on Betsy in the mid lane, because he doesn't want to get snared by that Varus ultimate. Bounce wave back. Cabashard picks up that farm. Gambit bases. They lose Dragon Control, but they're now in position to make the next move because Freeze hasn't based yet, Cass hasn't based yet. Lenny is still level 2. Cabashard is picking up a lot of farm right now. Let's see what Lenny does, because he's thinking right now, I'm helping my team, but he's slowly getting behind in terms of experience.
Level 2 on Lenny's, I was going to say Lenny's Youngbuck, but no, it's Lenny's Maokai. Saw Youngbuck playing Maokai so often. Cabashard, a small advantage. We do see those Dragon averages very low per game. Both teams usually get 1, but not a whole lot more.
Yeah, this is a difference when we watch matches of in LCK, for example. When that Maokai gets swapped on, they keep him in the lane to soak up the experience because they value his higher levels and more CS, more over the pressure on the map. Because they want to make sure that he stays tanky, because if you run a medium tanky Maokai into poke, he becomes very just useless almost. And here he is going to the bottom lane. Let's see if they can dive this with the Cabashard TP, because that's what people usually do. Cabashard's playing 1v2 and they're sending him down bottom. I feel a little early. I feel they didn't need to.
Then he's backed away. They should be able to secure this tower. Copenhagen Wolves pushing in the top lane. Coming into this game, Crepo, Gambit had only been in a lane swap in 2 of their 10 previous matches. And for the Copenhagen Wolves, not much better. 5-5, but in terms of gold,
Oh, look what they're doing. This is
2 of the lowest.
They're moving Cabashard to the bottom again and then facing as soon as they can to let that wave bounce again. And they want to make sure that he continuously is getting experience. I feel he could have picked up a wave on top, but he respected the Wolves enough, thinking that they would send 2 people with their bot lane top and the jungler and dive him as he has no flash. They want to play on the safer side of things. Gambit bases again. They're putting Forgiven behind. This is the opposite of what we saw in SK.
But what we do see is they're keeping Lenny down. And this is what you touched on in Picks and Bans, how successful Maokai teams get Maokai CS and experience. Take a look in the river. Junglers are coming in. There's the cleanse. Betsy throws the hammer down and Barrel comes in from Diamond procs. There's a to the skies as well as that knockback, and nobody down yet. Diamond is going to play gutsy as Soren's got no mana. But a lot traded. Summoners burned on the side of Gambit.
Yeah, Betsy tried to hold on to his cleanse for a bit, but then decided it was better to use it. Summoners burn on either side. Soren still has his flash though. Gas showing up in the village. Hello. But not too much happening.
So let's quickly revisit that Maokai versus Fizz point. 27 CS to 10, level 5 to level 3. That's some of the experience you were talking about, Crepo. Gambit, despite hurting Forgiven a little, he's still staying even with Freeze and defended that top tower.
Yeah, so definitely a superior lane swap here from Gambit. Yes, the gold is only 500 difference, but it's on the right players, and especially in terms of experience. I'm just gonna have a look on my screen right here. Lenny just turned level 4, and the wave is pushing back out. It's bouncing towards Cabashard. Cabashard is 5.3 already. This is a very big XP discrepancy. And once he hits level 6, with that Ignite, he might actually be able to kill Maokai. And if Maokai dies in a 1v1 scenario, then his utility is rendered void and useless almost. So good early game approach from Gambit, and we see the coaching from Chance stepping in. This is a more strategic Gambit. One could argue the most strategic Gambit early game I've seen so far in the entire split.
One small blunder on that invade, which the Wolves read well, but every decision after that in terms of towers and lanes working for Gambit.
I totally forgot that even happened, because I'm looking at the gold here. And I was thinking, why is Gambit not farther ahead? Because they're down a first blood. To be this far ahead while being down a first blood speaks even more in terms of Gambit.
Gambit doing very well. They're putting pressure on those outer ring of towers. And we need to see what do they do next. Jisuika with Shook in this middle lane. And they eat a Shock Blast because, of course, Betsy's got none of those summoners available.
Yeah, now they want to group. This is what Gambit wants to do. Once they hit level 6 on that Sivir, you want to group.
So let's find out whether or not Cabashard can get. Copenhagen Wolves have not been particularly strong.
Engage on Betsy here again.
Betsy's going to have the backup of Diamond procs, but takes a lot of damage from Soren.
don't have the comeback mechanic here. They need, and on the hunt gets popped. Cabo goes in.
Chum the Waters connects. Lenny gets slowed. Boomerang's out. He's gonna go in for the attack before we see Shook jumping in and dashing out.
Yeah, when you play a poke, a poke. And then you don't get to group up and poke, you obviously don't have too much left, especially if you don't have the damage threat in the top lane to put any pressure. Lenny is playing that tanky Maokai, but he got shut down in the early game, and we talked about this in the opening. Top tier teams are no longer picking Maokai in Europe, and we're seeing why in this game.
Gambit just seems to have shut down Lenny so efficiently. Forgiven and Pepper putting a lot of auto attacks onto the inner turret, but they don't have the most AD to work with. But look at Cabashot's farm.
Yeah, but look at that wave that's coming. Playing on low pressure because they have the wave clear from Betsy in the mid lane. Lenny is just a tank with a teleport. Not even level 6 yet, so all the cards right now are in Gambit's hand. And Shook on that early game jungle Lee Sin, he got the first blood, but he didn't manage to do anything with it.
10 minutes into the game. 30 CS for Lenny's Maokai. Fnatic shut down H2K by focusing and lane swapping and keeping Odoamne down, and Gambit have done something relatively similar. We see Cabashot has grabbed the Sheen and the Phage, going to be working towards that Triforce, further emphasizing his split push threats.
Yeah, now the game has stabilized a little bit, and the Wolves, because Cabashot is getting all that experience in the top lane, Gambit are making a clear decision right here. They said, okay, we're going to yield that dragon. We don't want to fight. But in the meanwhile, we let Cabashot slowly push out that top lane. He could have pushed that way quicker. He's not freezing, but he's doing something in between, a slow push. Letting those minions go down ever so slightly, pick up the gold where he can. Make sure you get it all.
If the focus is on slow push, do Gambit want to try group from mid? Or what objective, what is the reasoning behind the slow push, or theoretical one at least?
I mean, the good thing about a slow push is that you can make it a fast push very quickly. This sounds kind of dumb in your head, but if you're freezing and then you suddenly get behind on the map, or face check, then you need to make a decision to alter that state of the game, and you can quickly do that if you're slow pushing and just quickly clean the rest of the minions. But if you have like 2 waves stacked up there, then you can't switch over to a quicker tempo as fast as you want. And meanwhile, this is enough to catapult Cabashot in the lead. Look at him right now, level 8 against level 6 on Lenny. Lenny's only 6.4, Cabo is 8.5, 2 full levels ahead. Whereas the Wolves traded that for a dragon, but I feel Gambit is gonna shut down the Wolves right now and is gonna say, no more dragons for you guys. We're gonna take control of the map. But I'd like to see them group more. I'd like to see Forgiven push out bottom right now.
Lenny has less CS than both junglers. Diamond is gonna show in the jungle against Shook, and you can see Cabashot still slowly pushing forward. A little bit of vision in the top half of the map, but teleport's available if they need to get out as well.
Yeah, and I keep talking about experience, and you guys don't see it on your screen, but Cass is almost level 5 right now. Pepper is well level 6, so he's ahead right now. Forgiven's level 7. The only person that's behind his respective lane opponent, which is Freeze, is level 8 right now, so experience advantage on the side of Gambit, and then I think it'll show in one of the next fights.
And after giving up first blood, Gambit also have the gold lead, even on towers, but like you said, Crepo, most likely going to challenge for the next dragons. Copenhagen Wolves have got a numbers advantage up top, but they've got to be very careful because down bottom, they're relying on Soren to wave clear against Forgiven and Gosu Pepper.
Yeah, that is the benefit of playing double poke, is you have a lot of wave clear. This is actually the reason why you definitely want to introduce that split push component, because like we have seen in the past, when you run double poke against double poke, it kind of becomes a snooze fest sometimes in the mid game, because neither side will get far enough behind to not be able to clear these minions, and then superior rotations will be needed, or flanks.
So Shook connects with the Sonic Wave. He's looking for Betsy, kicks Betsy backwards, but Betsy puts the hammer down onto Cos before we see Freeze forced to Valk away, and Forgiven snipes with the boomerang, turns his attention to Shook, and Shook gets dropped as well. Wolves start the fight, but Gambit end it. Cabashot's gonna freeze Corky, and Sora's the next to at least pick up a kill. 3 for 1.
3 for 1 for Gambit, but misplay by the Copenhagen Wolves. Shook with a beautiful engaged flank, kick flash, but then Cass missing the binding. And that was enough to allow Betsy to escape, deal some damage. Then Pepper comes in, then Forgiven comes in because they have that on the hunt to quickly follow up. And this might be the nail in the coffin for this game. This was the one opening the Wolves had. Yeah, good reaction from Gambit. Watch that again.
Not going to use TP either.
So Betsy, gate is down. This is when you want to engage on a Jace all the time, once his gate is down. But look at the binding. That just goes a little wide. Cass is forced to defensively black shield himself. Get the heal, but he still dies. Betsy's still alive, and watch Pepper. He saved enough mana for that Monsoon. Could argue whether it was needed or not, but secures a kill. He probably won't need it in the next 2 minutes. Cabo comes in. Trading 1 for 1 on a split pusher is fine, because the people you kill often are not the ones that are going to deal with you later. As long as you stay ahead of Lenny, your direct lane opponent, Cabo Shard is fine with taking kills.
And it catches, it costs Gambit a tower. The Wolves are now the ones grouped up. You can see Cabo Shard down in the bottom lane. He does have teleport available, but there's no minions left for the Wolves to continue that siege.
Yeah, now Cabo Shard again just wants to put that split push. Now, ideally, Gambit want to send somebody top, push out the lanes, then return to group, and put a bit of a flank pressure on Cabo Shard. Diamond, however, he wants Cass.
Hold on to that explosive cask. As Copenhagen Wolves are in full retreat. The poke wars are on. Soren throws out a piercing arrow, and it's not going to be enough to defend the tower. So all outer towers down on both sides of the map. Cabo Shard's got a minion wave pushing up to this inner tower. Gambit seem to set their sights on it, as well as that blue buff for a steal.
Yeah, and this is why Janna is such a good pick as well. It facilitates the rotations. You can buff up that poke with the shield, get that extra AD, and then most importantly, if Shook tries to jump in, he has to combat Howling Gale and Monsoon for disengage. And it'll be incredibly hard for the Wolves to engage. They almost have to use their Black Shield on the Lee Sin, who then needs to get a good kick somehow that keeps everybody alive, to burst people down with only 2 damage threats, of which one of them scales quite horribly into the late game. Very tall task for the Copenhagen Wolves.
And is already behind Forgiven Siva by a sizable amount, 30 CS. Freeze is going to have that difficult time, as you mentioned. It does only equate to 600 gold.
He has a Triforce spike too, so right now Freeze is on his strongest position in the game, because Triforce doesn't scale well with other items compared to the likes of an Infinity Edge. So Freeze hit his power spike, but the Wolves, they can't use it.
And every time we look at Cabo Shard, he's got a very large minion wave to farm. 148 to 58.
Yeah, and minion wave manipulation is what you have to do in lane swaps, because it's predictable. You always know how these minions are going to interact with each other. You always know how this wave is going to behave. Forgiven had to flash though. Poke coming out, so he's finding out what it feels like to play poke or against poke. Spell shield was not enough.
No, not this time. And you know, Lenny, we keep looking at it.
They want the 3rd dragon.
Currently level 8 to Cabo Shard's level really massive. There is that dragon spawn. Gambit have Wolves are going to secure this. There should be some tower damage from Cabo.
I don't like Gambit is giving this up. They should have grouped for this, in my opinion. Giving away a 3rd dragon for free, oh well, for free is arguable, but trading it for some top lane damage that you could get anyways. Not the biggest fan, but the Wolves. Dragon. Remember, with the experience changes, if you're behind, you get more.
Gold. It's going to be much more difficult to defend. For Copenhagen Wolves, it's a matter of holding fast and digging deep once they get to these inhibitor turrets.
And we haven't talked too much about vision this game. On Gambit's side, so they've been locked on their map. So I would like to see, as a team, still need to work on. Gosu, Pepper, and Diamond Fox need to work a little better together. In the right place at the right time. One could argue that Pepper shouldn't stick with Forgiven as much, but that is up to personal preference, honestly.
So very impressed with Gambit's decision-making in this lane swap. Keeping in mind, Copenhagen Wolves do have substitutions and are still trying to find... honestly,
Yeah, but they seem to have a good grasp on how this game is supposed to be played. Or they're down all the way at the bottom. They're playing a direct competitor for relegation spots, for, you know, that auto relegation. The Wolves, they need this win, because if they win, comrades are not looking to let that happen. The unseen Nemo is the deadliest though. Speaking out of experience, once you count them out, you think you've won. You got a little trash talk.
And it is the right attitude to have when it is so contested. You look at all, especially when you consider Giants have to play Fnatic this week. So if all things go as expected, there's going to be another loss on Giants' name unless something magical happens. So for a team like Gambit, possible in lane swaps and decision making and closing out games.
Well, I do like the way they play this early game, and this manifests obviously in a fizz that is Scepter in there. If you look at items in the mid lane, this is what you'll see. Mana Immune slowly stacking up to the Muramane, then some armor penetration, and becomes even more valuable, that armor penetration, because you get extra AD from the Janna. Will always be slightly stronger. So I just want to put that emphasis on that Janna pick yet again. I think it was smart that Gambit went for it, because so far we've seen questionable support picks at times. You know, the double Taric from Gosu Pepper.
Yeah. Hey, it's a counter to Kalista. Worked 50% of the time. Lenny, on a more serious note, I just want to highlight, at 20 minutes he had 72 CS. It's actually the second lowest of any top laner this split so far. And it was, I think, because of Gambit's decisions, Odoamne was number one, yeah. Correct. So
that was
may be able to get away, running the gauntlet, and there's no chum the waters for Cabot.
Now luckily for the Wolves, in these compositions, the priority of farm and the priority champions ahead. So that's what we saw right there. They can stand up and poke against each other, and whoever sidesteps more skill shots, like Kaz does right there, and then in head-to-head, Maokai only has that Righteous Glory to go in. So he's gonna die really quickly, so they need to make good engages.
Well, the one thing you did touch on, Pepper, was flanking. And if Shook and Lenny can surprise Gambit...
Pepper. This is why we like to see people work together. Solo mission, I've yet to see Gosu tag team with Diamond.
Relatively early Ionian boots on that Janna.
I like it.
Not something you see all too often because of the Tailwind's passive. And I think the movement speed helped.
You look at that poke.
Oh.
Let's just let that rest for a bit. That's what this game's all about. But yeah, Ionian Boots CDR, much more valuable stat. Because Janna has so much innate movement speed already.
So Dragon number one picked up here for Gambit. Uncontested from the Wolves. Gambit significantly stronger with that 5k gold lead. And we hear
the
on
hunt
the
gets
hunt
popped.
for found Soren and Freeze. Held on to the explosive cast. Diamond one of the big poke components is down from the Copenhagen Wolves. Gambit with some easy kills. May try pick up an easy Baron.
Watch Gosu Pepper. He has to play ping pong with Shook right now. Shook's want to dash in with the Q, with the W. Gosu Pepper wants to reset with the ulti, but he's a little...
He's going to be throwing the hammer around and everybody's peeled from Baron. Copenhagen Wolves.
Here there in the Baron pit, however, he stuck to the wall too early. You have to go near that wall around the 2k point, because otherwise they will just simply kill you before you can finally get that reset on that smite. And honestly, good. He's going too low. I can force his ulti, go back out, then still have the threat of a W dash over. He's gonna peel off the Baron, try and fight, but less hesitation on the Wolves' side.
Didn't commit to that 50-50 Baron. Gambit's slightly better when it comes to the Baron statistics.
And you never want to commit to a 50-50 when you're running poke, because Baron is so good against poke and so good with poke. with another split push component, it is so hard for the enemy to defend because predictable manner that it gets so easy for you to land your skill shots. So we always see poke versus poke come out very slow. We should Shook here take a ward down. Because there's so much wave clear on either side, right? So definitely the objectives is where you want to play poke comes in.
Gambit, they do have that additional tool of the split pushing threat from Fizz. Trading skill shots back and forth. Piercing Arrow versus that accelerated shock blast. And both of them, Last Whisper and Brutalizer, both of them hitting real hard.
Box, quarter.
I feel like you could say the same. That
yeah, playing support into poke is the most frustrating thing ever because people tell you to ward. It's like, yeah, go ward. Yeah, go play some wards.
make it work, Crepo. Make it work. But this is that split push threat that we have highlighted. A little riskier because there's not a lot of vision.
Yeah, it needs to ward up now. More than one person shows, then he can go to the other side, go to the Baron.
God, 2 wards in the pit.
Yeah,
3 wards in the pit.
You gotta set up your plays a little more in advance now. You need to use this first window of opportunity to get deep vision in the jungle. Then you need to repeat the same cycle, then start
away.
Oh, you're starting with the... Oh, poor Gosu.
Party, and they are. Baron secured after 2 or 3 attempts. Baron plus Poke, now Gambit have the open.
Off your HP. But they knew they were going to burn it down. It's no longer... Cabo Shard, who's a big split push component, which goes back all the way to level 1, where Forgiven was sacrificing his farm for his top laner. Gambit as a whole played more strategic with a bigger goal in mind. Their top laner was their #1 priority. Copenhagen was his top laner was...
And that easily demonstrated. I mean, he's actually only 3rd highest for top laners in the league. But this particular game is going to be significantly more thanks to all of the farm. Early GA as well, so Cabo really wants to keep those side lanes under pressure.
Now you can never judge the pressure. That's because you're playing with Poke. Poke is a lot of repetitive damage to champions, so while facilitates opening up the map so much more for Gambit Gaming, so while the numbers may not show it, he's definitely forced to be reckoned with this game.
And there's again another good example of how effective Baron empowered minions are. And how difficult it is to now being focused on the hunters available for Forgiven, as is everything else for Gambit with the exception of teleport. Lenny is up top trying to defend.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, towers have been changed this patch as well. They no longer slow or do the damage reduction, so Cabo has an easier time split pushing if he so wants to. He joins his team in the middle. Look at the...
Barrel comes down, Cabo takes him out. Gambit crack open the base with a kill, a tower, and an inhibitor.
A crucial objective here for Forgiven. One could argue that the choice of pathing was suboptimal for Gambit. They just want that other tower. Look at the shields, they're keeping Betsy alive.
Now Lenny looking for an engage. The barrel goes a little wide.
Look at those improved recalls. 4 seconds back to base. 2 inhib towers down, 1 inhibitor down. Dragon is live. Don't want to lose that. Copenhagen Wolves are definitely going to go for Desperation Dragon here.
It secures the Dragon as Betsy will actually land the kill secure hit.
Betsy says it's hammer time, comes in, cleans up Shook. No more comeback mechanics. Gambit in full control of this game.
Only Shook managed to pick up a kill. Looking flashy in the process. Right, Gambit now grouped up. They do have all of their members. It's taken down at 31.5 minutes. Gambit have absolute map.
Yep. With every push out during the course of this game. If you don't know what Domoy is, that was the catchphrase in Season 2 for Moscow 5. Roughly means go home.
Distinctly remember it used quite frequently against you, Crapo.
Yep. They tried.
In the old days.
The good old days. In team fight, stall out the game.
Bomb for 40 minutes and then decide to play. But what is beautiful is Gambit's growth this split. I think from when the team started in week 1, they were quite open and quite vocal about some of the difficulties preparing. And one of the things that I think we keep repeating is how we all thought Will
didn't warrant any, he didn't need to grow all that much until the SK strategy got kind of exposed. But yeah, definitely nice to see some adaptation here. Also Chance for stepping up to the plate. I mean, coming into a winning team, it's easy to start as compared to like right now, it's such a vast improvement, and this is not only obviously Chance, it's all the members working hard.
Yeah, the game plan near flawlessly executed. Massive damage onto I Am Cheese, Je suis Cass, of course, and that should be enough to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, we're gonna see some wine with that cheese. Copenhagen Wolves pressured, and they're gonna be crying because there's so little you can do at this point in the game.
Tiamat picked up for Cabashard as well.
Interesting.
Why not? Go all in. Dropping. Copenhagen was forced to respond, and Cabo's gonna get this tower. Betsy is sitting down in that middle lane, pushing on the on the Nexus, and Gambit absolutely destroyed.
Shard quickly learns that your Guardian Angel doesn't pop when you get kicked into the fountain, so he actually ends up dead, and Gambit playing for KDA right here. Some target practice for the next game tomorrow, but the Nexus goes down. Gambit